So the plan here is to take all this space here and make a shelf. So I guess we'll get started on that, see how it goes. Okay, and this part of the wall here comes out, and you'll see there down to about 13 inches at the wall. So, and then we got this little tow bar down here. So with that trim piece being out to about 13 inches, it's about the width we'll be able to do the shelf at. Alright, so now what I did is I've lined up all my 6-foot boards. These are going to be the ones that are upright, so these will be supporting all the planks and the shelves. And what I did is on the 4 boards, there's 8 total boards, 4 in the front, 4 in the back. The 4 boards in the back I bumped them up. You can see the little gap here. I bumped them up about 1/8 of an inch, slightly over that, to where the whole shelf will lean slightly into the wall. So that way there's no chance of the shelf having a forward lean. And I went in and took a level in there first to make sure see what the slant was on the floor. That way the shelf is going to sit in there properly. And then I just marked these out, and I went from here to my top line, which is the top of the board that's supporting the shelf. So that's 12 inches. So this will actually be a little bit more than 12 inches once I put the 1.5 or the 2x4 on top of it. But so I basically measured out 1 foot here to this top line, and then 1.5 inches back, because that's the thickness of the board, and then to 2 feet with 1.5 inches back, because that's the thickness of the board, 3 feet, 1.5 inches back, and so on all the way up to the top. And now I'm moving on to the next part, and you'll get to see what it looks like once these things are in place. I set the saw to 1/4 inch roughly down onto the wood, so you can see where it's sitting. So it should make a slight groove into this wood, so I'm going to cut it out where those lines are. So it basically gives a little groove for the boards that support the shelves to sit into, so once I screw it in, it should be on there pretty tight and support quite a bit of weight. So now I've taken the skill saw at that shallow depth, and I've done multiple cuts down this. I basically just made a guide board for myself to be able to do the cuts. These are 1.5 inches wide, which is approximately the same width of this wood. So when I actually put it in here, I'm going to take a chisel, and I'm going to chisel out all the extra little chunks that are in there. And this will actually sit down in there, and then the screw will actually come up from right here up into the wood and hold it in place. So now that everything's been notched out, and one of the things that I did when I did this that helped me quite a bit was after I did all the slices with the skill saw here, I went through and I took the chisel, and I just, when it gets to just like this, just dragging it like this, helped to chip off a lot of these things right here. So you can see what it's doing. Yeah, it seemed like it works very, very nice for that. So now what I'm going to do is I'm basically going to be sandwiching this kind of like a ladder, so this will get flipped over and facing down on that, and I'll show you here in 1 second. Now you can see I set these all up. I put clamps on them, and basically this allows me to make it to where these are in place. Since the weight is going to be coming this way, this direction, the shelf's going to be on top of it going this way, you'd like it to be right in the edge of the groove here. So you just tap it, make sure it's in place, and then over here just make sure that it's right where you want it. So I'm just making sure these things are centered. So like that. Get in there. So that way they're looking good. Also, I set this so that this back part is actually going to be slightly shorter from here to the shelf, and this leg's going to be slightly longer, and the reason for that is to hopefully get the weight to slant a little bit against that wall, and hopefully that's not what I already went over. But so now I've set these, set the boards in, and if you notice I put the two frame pieces here and two frame pieces on that end, and then those are going to get scooted down here in the middle. I did set the scrap wood I had as spacers on these back ones, so now it's easier for me to slide the second one. See, it's so loose, I can slide it in to where I want it here, so that it's distributing the weight just right on these things. And then once that's done, I'll move on to the next step. This is a shelf. It's completed for the most part. You can see in here where it's been countersunk into the uprights to add to the strength for the weight of the whatever you put on the shelves. In this case, these are all about 12 inches apart. The bottom's a little bit deeper, a little taller, but that's about it. You can see I put countersunk the screws right in here, and the reason that I screwed as opposed to doing like biscuits or plates is that if I want to later, I can take these apart and I can actually do longer or wider 2x4s right here, and that allows me to make a deeper shelf. Like if I move this into the garage, which is probably going to happen in the next house. I had a clamp with me, that way when I'm putting this stuff down I can clamp it down in place, so if the board's a little warped I can kind of force it into place if I want to. So these little bar clamps are handy. I have the level here, just a small level, it's pretty cheap too. I just put up against the side here. I can make sure that it's straight up and down, so that way it's supporting all the weight and it's not going to bend over or tip out on me. And then also I have the hammer here. Sometimes it's handy for just adjusting the boards in place. In this case I did use a full 12-foot boards. I didn't cut them at all. That way I get the most out of the wood. And then all these under here are pretty much cut out from scraps that I have. You can see some of the stuff from here. And then so pretty much, like I said, everything is pretty inexpensive. This whole thing was probably about $80, I guess, to put together. I do have a countersink bit that is very handy for putting the screws in, and I just kind of screwed them in at an angle. That way I'm not stressing about getting the drill to fit in the space right here. But so that's pretty much it. If this helps anybody, it'd be awesome. Alright, hope you guys enjoy it. Bye.